Security walked me out at 2:15 p.m. on a Wednesday. After 8 years with this company, after everything my family built here, I was getting the perp walk because some hotshot CEO thought I was dead weight. Jared Westbrook had no idea what he'd just done. I'm Andrew Hartwell, 49 years old, and I guess you could say I've been playing a very long game. While Jared was strutting around Hartwell Industrial Solutions thinking he ran the place, I actually owned 78% of it through a family trust nobody knew about. The irony wasn't lost on me as Security Officer Tommy Rodriguez, a guy I'd known for 12 years, awkwardly followed me to my car. "Sorry about this, Mr. Hartwell," Tommy whispered. "This doesn't feel right." "Don't worry about it, Tommy. Just doing your job." But I wasn't really okay with it. I was pissed. Let me back up a bit. When my father stepped down as CEO 9 months ago, the board hired Jared from outside the company. Fresh perspective, they said. New energy. I supported the decision at first. Maybe I was too close to see what needed changing. Boy, was I wrong. Jared came in like a tornado. First week, he moved my office from the executive floor down to the 7th. Said they needed space for key personnel. I bit my tongue. Second week, he cut my operations budget by 35% without explanation. Third week, he started laying off people who'd been with us for decades. That should have been my red flag right there. See, Hartwell Industrial Solutions isn't just any company. We've been family-owned since my grandfather started it in 1968. Started with 8 employees making industrial equipment parts in a rented warehouse on the east side of Austin. Back then, it was just Hartwell Manufacturing, a simple name for a simple operation. My grandfather, William Hartwell, was a Korean War veteran who came back to Texas with nothing but determination and a head for mechanical engineering. He'd learned precision manufacturing working on aircraft engines in the service. And he saw an opportunity in the booming Texas industrial sector. Those first years were brutal. Grandfather worked 16-hour days. My grandmother kept the books from the kitchen table, and they reinvested every penny back into equipment and facilities. The company's first big break came in 1971 when they landed a contract with a Houston-based oil drilling equipment manufacturer. That contract let them hire 15 more employees and move into a proper facility. By 1975, they had 50 employees and were diversifying into aerospace components for the emerging Austin Tech corridor. Today, we're pulling in $580 million annually with 1,900 employees across 3 facilities. We've got our main plant here in Austin, a precision machining facility in Oklahoma City, and a specialized aerospace components division in Little Rock. It's not just the numbers that matter, it's what those numbers represent. Families, careers, livelihoods built over decades. The secret to our ownership structure goes back to my grandfather's paranoia about hostile takeovers in the 1980s. He'd seen too many family businesses get swallowed up by corporate raiders who cared nothing about the people or the culture. So he set up this complex trust arrangement that keeps the majority ownership completely private. The Hartwell Family Trust was established in 1987, structured by the best corporate lawyers money could buy. It's a labyrinth of legal protections designed to keep control in family hands while maintaining operational flexibility. As far as anyone knows, including Jared, the board, even most of our executives, I'm just Andrew Hartwell, Senior Operations Director. Only 3 people knew the truth: my father, our family lawyer James Patterson, and our CFO Patricia Caldwell. That's it. The trust documents are locked away in Patterson's vault so tight that even our board of directors had no clue about the real ownership structure. The beauty of the setup is that it appears to be a standard privately held corporation with distributed ownership among various investment entities. I could have pulled rank on day 1 when Jared started making changes I didn't like, but I wanted to see what kind of leader he really was. Would he respect what we'd built? Would he care about our people? Would he understand that this wasn't just another corporate acquisition to be optimized and flipped? The answer became crystal clear over those 9 months. Jared's background was impressive on paper. MBA from Wharton, 12 years climbing the corporate ladder at various consulting firms, and a track record of operational efficiency improvements. What looked good in a resume, though, didn't translate to understanding a family business with 56 years of history and deeply embedded culture. His first quarterly report was a disaster. Revenue was down 8% despite having a strong market position in industrial equipment and aerospace components. He blamed market conditions and what he called legacy inefficiencies. But I knew better. Our market share had been growing steadily for 3 years running, and our customer relationships were rock solid. Our cash reserves were actually strong, about $75 million in working capital, which was solid for a company our size. We weren't some struggling operation that needed radical surgery. We were a profitable, growing business that had weathered multiple economic downturns by staying focused on quality and relationships. The revenue decline wasn't about market conditions. It was about Jared's decisions, and they were getting worse by the month. He outsourced our customer service department to a call center in Phoenix to save $1.6 million annually. Sounds smart on paper, right? Wrong. Our customer service wasn't just about taking orders and handling complaints. These were relationships built over decades. Our customers knew they could call and talk to Sarah in customer service, who'd been with us 14 years and knew every product line inside and out. Sarah could tell a customer exactly which bolt specification they needed for a 1987 drilling rig, or walk a maintenance supervisor through a complex installation over the phone. She knew which clients needed their orders expedited because of shutdown schedules and which ones were flexible on delivery. That kind of institutional knowledge doesn't transfer to a script-reading call center worker in Phoenix making $12 an hour. The results were predictable and devastating. Our customer satisfaction scores dropped 28% in 6 months. We lost 2 major clients who'd been with us for over 12 years, Henderson Drilling Equipment and Southwest Industrial Supply. They cited poor communication, lack of technical knowledge, and what one purchasing manager called feeling like just another account number. Henderson alone represented $14 million in annual revenue. Southwest was worth $10 million. That's $24 million in business walking out the door because Jared wanted to save $1.6 million in payroll costs. Even a first-year business student could see that math didn't work. But the customer service disaster was just the beginning. Jared had this obsession with what he called operational efficiency metrics. He brought in these expensive consultants from McKinsey who spent 6 weeks analyzing our workflow and came back with a 200-page report that basically said we needed to eliminate redundancies and streamline decision-making processes. In plain English, that meant firing experienced people and making the survivors do more work for the same pay. The layoffs started in month 3. 18 people total, most of them longtime employees who knew our systems inside and out. Jared's justification was that we could replace their $62,000 average salaries with younger workers making $43,000. What he didn't factor in was the training time, the learning curve, and the inevitable mistakes that come with inexperience. Brenda Martinez was the one that really got to me. 24 years in our accounting department, never missed a day except for her daughter's wedding. She knew every client's payment history, could spot billing errors from across the room, and had personally handled our relationship with 3 different banking partners. Jared let her go on a Friday afternoon and replaced her with a recent college graduate who needed 3 months of training just to understand our invoicing system. The worst part was watching Brenda train her own replacement, knowing she was working herself out of a job. That's the kind of class and professionalism Jared didn't understand and apparently didn't value. Then he canceled our annual company BBQ, a tradition we'd maintained for 32 years. The BBQ wasn't just a party, it was how we celebrated another successful year, recognized employee achievements, and let families see where their loved ones worked. Kids played on the factory floor while their parents showed them the products they helped build. Retirees came back to catch up with old friends. It was our community. The BBQ cost us $28,000 a year. For a company with $580 million in revenue, that's pocket change. But Jared saw it as non-essential spending that didn't contribute to quarterly performance metrics. The cancellation announcement came via email on a Tuesday morning. No explanation, no apology, just a brief note about focusing resources on core business activities. I watched grown men and women who'd been looking forward to introducing their grandchildren to their work family just stare at their computers in disbelief. Employee satisfaction surveys, which we conduct twice yearly, showed a 32% decline over Jared's first 6 months. Comments ranged from frustrated to angry to heartbroken. Management doesn't care about us anymore. Company feels like a stranger now, looking for other opportunities. These weren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. These were families depending on us for their livelihoods, people who'd built their careers around the belief that loyalty and hard work mattered. Jared was systematically destroying that belief. I tried talking to him about it. 3 different times I requested meetings to discuss the direction of the company. Each time he brushed me off with corporate speak about staying in your lane and trusting the process. The 3rd time, he actually told me that my emotional attachment to legacy practices was hindering my ability to see the bigger picture. Emotional attachment. Like caring about people was a character flaw. The bigger picture, according to Jared, was preparing the company for aggressive growth and eventual strategic partnerships, code words for selling out to a larger corporation. He'd drop hints about private equity interest and acquisition multiples, completely missing the point that we didn't want to be acquired. We were building something to pass down, not cash out. His efficiency initiatives kept getting more ridiculous. He instituted new protocols that required 3 signatures for purchase orders over $500. Previously, department heads could approve anything under $5,000. The new system created bottlenecks that delayed critical maintenance and frustrated our suppliers. He restructured the sales commission plan, reducing compensation for our veteran salespeople in favor of team-based incentives. Our top salesperson, Gary Palmer, who'd been with us 16 years and personally managed over $40 million in annual accounts, saw his income drop by $18,000. Gary started looking for other opportunities immediately. The Christmas bonuses were next to go. For 35 years, we'd given every employee a bonus equivalent to 1 week's pay. It cost us about $220,000 total and meant the world to our people. Jared canceled them in December, citing cash flow optimization. We had $75 million in reserves. Month by month, I watched Jared dismantle everything my grandfather and father had built. The culture, the relationships, the trust, it was all being sacrificed on the altar of operational efficiency. And through it all, he had no idea that the man he kept dismissing as a legacy employee actually owned the company he was destroying. The final straw came last Wednesday morning. I was in my office reviewing client retention reports when Jared's assistant, Jennifer Walsh, knocked on my door. She looked uncomfortable, which should have been my first clue. Jennifer had been with us 6 years and usually handled difficult situations with professional grace. Today she looked like she was about to deliver bad news to a family member. "Mr. Hartwell, Mr. Westbrook wants to see you in Conference Room C." Conference Room C was the small one, the one they use for disciplinary meetings. I walked in to find Jared sitting at the head of the table with HR Director Thomas Gray. Thomas had a manila folder in front of him, which was never a good sign. In 8 years with the company, I'd seen that folder exactly 4 times, and each time someone left the building for the last time. Jared didn't even look up from his phone. "Andrew, we're going to have to let you go." Just like that. No build-up, no explanation, no acknowledgement of my 8 years with the company or my family's 56-year history here. The casual dismissal was almost more insulting than the termination itself. "I'm sorry," I said, sitting down slowly. "Your position is being eliminated as part of our restructuring initiative. The board has approved a 12% reduction in operations staff and your role has been deemed redundant." Thomas slid the folder across the table. "Your severance package is quite generous. 10 weeks pay plus benefits continuation through the end of the year." I opened the folder and pretended to read through the termination paperwork. The irony was thick enough to cut with a knife. Here I was, reading my own termination letter from a company my family had built from nothing, signed by a man who didn't even know he worked for me. "This is effective immediately?" I asked. "Yes," Jared said, finally putting his phone down. "Security will escort you out. Standard procedure for all departing employees. Standard procedure. Like I was some disgruntled worker they needed to worry about stealing office supplies. Can I ask what specific aspects of my role were deemed redundant?" I kept my voice level, professional. Jared shifted in his seat. "Well, with our new efficiency protocols and streamlined management structure, we've determined that many of the operations oversight functions can be handled by existing department heads." Translation. He had no idea what I actually did and figured he could distribute my responsibilities among people who were already overworked. "I see. And this decision went through the full board approval process?" "Of course," Jared said quickly. Too quickly. Thomas Gray was looking uncomfortable now. I'd worked with Thomas for 8 years, and he knew the corporate governance procedures as well as anyone. The look on his face suggested this might be news to him too. "Well," I said, standing up and closing the folder, "I guess there's nothing left to discuss." That's when it hit me. After everything, after my grandfather building this company from nothing, After my father growing it into a regional powerhouse, after 8 years of my own sweat and dedication, I was getting walked out like some kind of security risk. But here's the thing about playing a long game. You learn patience. You learn to wait for the right moment, and sometimes the right moment chooses itself. I signed the papers without arguing, shook hands with Thomas, who mumbled something about being sorry to see me go. Walked out with Tommy Rodriguez following behind me, both of us pretending this was normal. As soon as I got to my car, I called James Patterson. "They fired you," James said before I could even explain. "I can hear it in your voice. Position elimination. Jared's cleaning house. On what authority? Did this go through proper board channels?" That's an interesting question. One I think the board might like to have answered. There was a pause on the other end. "Andrew, you know you can end this anytime you want." "I know, but I want to do this right. Call an emergency board meeting for this afternoon. Tell them the majority shareholder is invoking Clause 47B. Another pause. Longer this time. The nuclear option. The nuclear option. Clause 47B was my grandfather's masterpiece of corporate paranoia. Buried deep in our company charter, page 23 of a 47-page document that most people never bothered to read completely. It allows the majority shareholder to call an immediate board meeting and assume direct control if they believe management is acting against shareholder and employee interests. The clause was written in 1987, during the height of corporate raider activity. My grandfather had watched too many family businesses get destroyed by leveraged buyouts and hostile takeovers. He wanted a nuclear button, something that could stop a bad CEO before they did irreversible damage. Nobody had ever used it. Hell, most people didn't even know it existed. "How long do you need to prepare?" James asked. "Give me 2 hours. Schedule it for 3:00 p.m. "And the presentation materials?" "I've been preparing for this meeting for 9 months, James. I just didn't know it. I spent the next 2 hours putting together a presentation, but not about my termination. That was just the catalyst. This was about 9 months of watching Jared systematically destroy everything we'd built. The numbers told the whole story, and I had them all. Revenue down 8% from $580 million to $534 million year over year. Employee satisfaction dropped 32% in 9 months. Customer retention lost 2 major accounts worth $24 million combined. Customer service ratings down 28% since outsourcing. Operating costs actually up 14% despite all the efficiency measures. But here's what really got me. Our profit margins were down 18%. Even with the layoffs, even with the cost cutting, even with all of Jared's efficiency initiatives, we were less profitable than before he arrived. He'd fired experienced people, making $62,000 annually, and hired inexperienced replacements at $43,000, thinking he was saving money. Instead, productivity dropped, error rates increased, training costs skyrocketed, and we were spending more on overtime and contractor support than we saved on salaries. It was like watching someone tear down a house to save money on maintenance, then spend twice as much rebuilding what they'd destroyed. At 2:50 p.m., I walked back into the Hartwell Industrial Solutions building. This time, I wasn't leaving as an employee. I was coming back as the owner. Carlos Martinez, our front desk security guard, did a double take when he saw me walk through the lobby. "Mr. Hartwell, I thought you were... I heard... Emergency board meeting, Carlos. I'm expected." I took the elevator to the 15th floor. Through the glass doors of our main conference room, I could see all 6 board members already assembled. Patricia Caldwell looked tense. Thomas Gray was fidgeting with his papers. Linda Foster, Richard Stone, Margaret Hunt, and Paul Anderson all wore the confused expressions of people summoned to an emergency meeting with no explanation. And of course, Jared, sitting at the head of the table like he owned the place. James Patterson was already there with a stack of legal documents that looked about 2 inches thick. He gave me a slight nod as I entered. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for accommodating this meeting on short notice." Jared looked annoyed. "Andrew, I'm not sure what kind of stunt you're trying to pull here, but you no longer work for this company." "Actually, Jared, that's exactly what we need to discuss." James stepped forward. "If I may, I need to read something into the record." He opened the top document. As of this date, Andrew William Hartwell, acting as majority shareholder of Hartwell Industrial Solutions, is invoking Clause 47B of the corporate charter, established March 15, 1987. I watched Jared's face as James read through the legal language. Confusion first, then disbelief, then something approaching panic. Majority shareholder? Jared interrupted, his voice climbing an octave. There must be some mistake. Patricia Caldwell spoke up, relief washing over her face. There's no mistake, Jared. Andrew owns 78% of the company through the Hartwell Family Trust, established in 1987. The room went completely silent. Richard Stone leaned back in his chair and started laughing. Well, I'll be damned. That explains a lot. This is impossible, Jared said, his voice getting higher. I would have been told about this. No, I said calmly. The trust structure specifically prevents disclosure except under certain circumstances, like when the majority shareholder believes management is causing material damage to the company. I walked to the whiteboard where James had set up my presentation materials. Over the past 9 months, this company has experienced significant decline across multiple key performance indicators. I went through the numbers methodically. Revenue down 8%. Employee satisfaction dropped 32%. Customer retention lost $24 million in business. Operating costs up 14%, despite efficiency measures. This morning, I said, clicking to my final slide, I was terminated without board approval, violating both my employment contract and corporate governance procedures. Thomas Gray's face went pale. Jared, you didn't get board approval for that termination? I didn't think I needed it, Jared said, his voice shaking. You did, Patricia confirmed. It's specifically outlined in Section 14 of his contract. The room was dead quiet. Jared looked like he was calculating escape routes. Effective immediately, I said. I'm exercising my rights as majority shareholder to remove Jared Westbrook as Chief Executive Officer of Hartwell Industrial Solutions. The formal vote was quick. 6 board members, unanimous decision to remove Jared and install me as interim CEO. Jared gathered his papers with shaking hands. This is a mistake, he said one more time. You're going to run this company into the ground. Maybe, I said, but at least I'll regret it with my own decisions. After he left, I looked around the table. So, let's talk about fixing this mess. 6 months later. The recovery exceeded even my optimistic projections. Turns out patience pays off after all. First priority was damage control. We reversed the layoffs immediately. Of the 18 people Jared had terminated, 15 wanted to come back. Brenda Martinez was the first to accept, and I didn't just restore her position. I promoted her to accounting supervisor with a $12,000 raise. Mr. Hartwell, she said when I called her personally, I never thought I'd be coming back. You're not just coming back, Brenda. You're helping us train the next generation. Bringing customer service back in-house took 4 weeks. The Phoenix call center tried to hold us to a 90-day notice, but James Patterson made it clear we had legal grounds for immediate termination due to performance failures. The results spoke for themselves. Customer service ratings jumped 22% in the first month. Within 3 months, both Henderson Drilling Equipment and Southwest Industrial Supply agreed to resume their contracts after site visits. That was $24 million in annual revenue back on the books. We restored the company BBQ that summer. Over 1,200 people showed up, employees, families, retirees, watching kids play on the factory floor while their parents explained what we built, seeing 3 generations of families who'd worked for us. That's when I knew we'd gotten our soul back. Christmas bonuses returned too. That $220,000 meant everything to our people, and it showed in the numbers. Employee satisfaction surveys showed a 45% improvement from the Jared era. Retention hit 93% compared to 71% during his tenure. Patricia Caldwell stepped into the permanent CEO role like she was born for it. She'd been doing half the job anyway while Jared focused on his efficiency initiatives. The board vote was unanimous. Patricia, I said during her appointment meeting, you've earned this position 10 times over. I transitioned to executive chairman, which honestly suited me better. I could focus on long-term strategy and succession planning without getting bogged down in day-to-day operations. By year's end, revenue hit $645 million, up 21% from Jared's low point. We hired 180 new employees and started an apprenticeship program for local high school graduates, something my grandfather would have loved. Tommy Rodriguez got promoted to head of security. The man who'd awkwardly escorted me out now runs the department, doing right by people, as my grandfather used to say. I learned something important through all this. The best revenge isn't about making someone pay for their mistakes. It's about fixing what they broke and making sure it doesn't happen again. My grandfather would be proud. He built something that survived his paranoia, my father's caution, my patience, and Jared's ambition. That's not luck. That's good bones. And now we're building for the next generation, just like he intended. Some battles are worth the wait.